Where do I begin? I was a detective for about 5 years on the police force because I've seen my uncle, my grandfather, and my father serve on the police force for a total of 50 plus years, serving truth and justice. And as a kid, I wanted to be a police officer myself. I wanted to be the knight in shining armor to damsels in distresses, and I wanted to be the the guy that everybody looked up to, especially children. I wanted fellow men to say, "This is a guy I want to be." So I went to the police force. I only was in there for 5 years. There's a reason why I only served 5 years on the police force. I know what you're probably thinking. Maybe it was corruption. Maybe it was you got fired. Maybe you done something wrong. Maybe a conspiracy. No. In fact, I can't stand any of you conspiracy theory nutbags at all. No. I read the conspiracy theory stories. I don't buy them for 1 second. No, I was not fired. I quit. I handed in my badge like a grumpy butcher when they're angry while grinding up the meat. No, I did not get fired. I quit my job. I'll tell you why I quit my job. Corruption does have a small part in it, but that's not why I quit. I live here in New York. I live in a studio apartment. These studio apartments are a new thing in the city. I live in Manhattan and I live near 42nd Street. Believe me, my apartment's pretty expensive. And I do other work now. I'm a writer for a paper called the New York Post. But that's besides the point. I'm getting off topic, but this is the story why I left the police force. Within my first 2 years, everything seemed fine until I had a case to deal with. This case I had to deal with, I don't know about you, but I had nightmares the whole time. I had a gut feeling in my stomach that it wouldn't pan out well for me. In fact, I had a gut feeling I would have to have federal Secret Service protection, and I had a gut feeling that I would have to change my name legally so I wouldn't get killed, or anybody I know wouldn't get killed. I had a feeling I had to relocate. Luckily, I don't have to. But on my 3rd year on the police force, I had a case that I had to deal with. And this case I had to deal with involved a murder. It involved a vicious murder. Sorry, I always gotta rub my eyes when I tell the story because I can't get out of my head what I saw. I can't get this feeling out of my head. I can't get this nightmare out of my head. It haunts me every single night. And I'm a war veteran. I served. I served in World War II. I lied about my age so I could serve in the Army. I've seen horrible stuff in World War II. I've seen stuff that no young man should see at the age of 17. But I sleep comfortably when I tell my war stories. But I cannot sleep comfortably after dealing with this case. This case took 3 years. Within the 3 years, horrific events happened to me. Here's the stuff that happened to me. I got the job to lead this case. And I thought this would be great. This would put me on the map as one of New York City's greatest detectives. I was wrong. The first guy that we got the lead on, Joey Mananucci. Joey Mananucci, immigrant from Italy. He seemed very suspicious when we interviewed him. Very suspicious indeed. He didn't, how do I put it? He didn't have what I call a poker face. He didn't have a poker face. I've seen right through him. After I interrogated him, he started being followed around by his henchmen. But at night, and in dark areas of the city. Keep in mind, there are places in Manhattan that are very, very pitch black at night. So, when you hear the saying that New York policemen are brave, that's somewhat true. We're brave during the day, but we're terrified walking home at night. It's a city that never sleeps, but it's also the city that has very few lights that stay on during the night. So I'm walking back from my precinct in Manhattan when I realize that one of the lights started to flicker. One of the lights started to fizz out. Okay, this is normal for Manhattan. I'm not alarmed at all right now. And so I continue to walk home, but then I hear footsteps behind me. Stomp by stomp by stomp. Now I look around me, nothing. Start walking again. Stomp by stomp by stomp. Follows me, but in a very slow, creeping way. I look behind me and thank heavens I was right near the subway entrance. Thank heavens I was right near the terminal. I caught the last train. I caught the last train to Brooklyn. Because I had this hangout with my fellow cop buddies. I still hang out with them at this bar in Brooklyn. So, I was lucky enough to catch the last train to Brooklyn. I was lucky enough to save my own skin. Because the next day, I read in the paper that someone was found dead in the streets of Manhattan and was stabbed to death 40 times. And I'm thinking, that could have been me, because I heard someone creeping behind me. I lucked out. By the grace of God, I lucked out. But then, things got worse. Things went from creepy to scary pretty fast. I started to get this feeling that people were watching me. At my home, at my job, when I was off duty, I got this feeling people were watching me. I can't tell you why or how this feeling got in my brain, but I felt like people were watching me. So one night, I get home, and I have one of the studios in Manhattan that you could see a reflection of the city. I get home, I turn on the lights. Weird. I don't remember leaving the door unlocked. Nothing's missing. Once again, thank God. But I see a note. A note that says, "We know what you're up to." I go back to the precinct. They say, "I'm going to work overnight. Because I can't be alone right now." And one of my friends, let's just call him John to save his identity in this video, he says to me, "What's wrong?" I say, "Look at this note. I found it when I got home." He said, "Weird. I've been getting notes like this too." So we were helping each other that night. He said to me, "Hey, pal, I'm going to go to the corner, get sandwiches. What do you want?" I said, "Get me a pastrami with mustard. That's it." Oh, on rye bread, by the way. Don't forget the rye bread. They always screw up my order. He says, "Okay, pastrami sandwich on rye bread with mustard, fine." Now, we haven't arrested anybody that night. It was pretty quiet in the precinct. We did have one guy in a holding cell, though, because he had to go to trial the next day. So, this guy, guilty or innocent, I don't remember at this point, but fascinating chap to talk to. Anyway, so him and I are talking about the news and stuff, and he says, "Have you heard about the recent murders?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been investigating them." He's like, "If I were you, I wouldn't do it." And at first I got suspicious of him. He says, "Look, I'm behind bars. I have trial tomorrow. There's no way I have any outside connections whatsoever." He said, "Hear me out." He said, "Give this case to somebody else, because you're going to wind up dead somewhere or sometime." And I listened to him. Something told me to listen to him, and he said, "Listen, I've had good friends who were cops that were found dead in New Jersey, that were found dead outside of New York, investigating cases like this." I said, "You know what? I always say I watch my ass with two eyes in the back of my head, but you know what? I should be careful." He says, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, by the way, happy birthday, by the way. I meant to tell you earlier." And I said, "Oh, thanks. Thank you very much." He said, "I'd say how old you were, but you'd kill me." I said, "Yeah, you're, yeah, you're right." And we joked about that. But then, after my night shift was over, I got home. I was dead exhausted. I couldn't do day shift. So I decided to tap out and go home to lay down for a bit. So I have my room designed so if I ever do get home from a late night shift, I can just close my door. It's pitch black. But while I was sleeping, though, I felt as I was being choked. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was having a nightmare. I got up. Someone had their tie around my neck. Someone had their hands around my neck. I couldn't breathe. I was fighting to save my life. I was breathing through my nose. I don't know how we lived. But then, as soon as I finally broke out of the person's um, grip, I shined my flashlight on them, my metal flashlight from the police precinct that they let me keep, by the way. It was one of my coworkers, Sally Masano. Sally Masano was a henchman the whole time for Joseph. The same guy we interrogated first. He was working on the police precinct the whole time, and his job was to kill me if I got too close to the truth. So I left. I gave it to someone else. Sammy got arrested. Is now in prison. I still get nervous talking about him. But nonetheless. That's how I stopped being a New York police officer, and this is why I'm a writer now for a newspaper. But I am under protection. I can't tell you what my real name is, or what my real name was. I live under an alias. Same apartment, different address. Anyway, that's my story. See ya.